Hi, I'm Nigel Poulton and welcome to another Kubernetes moment. So Kubernetes is API centric, yeah? Which begs the question, what the chuff is an API? I mean, no joke, right? I'll sometimes have people come to me and say, hey, Nigel, what's this about the Kubernetes API server? So some people don't even know how to pronounce it. Now, look, does it matter how you pronounce it? Not in my book, it doesn't, but it's probably a good place to start. Anyway, Kubernetes is API centric. So everything is stored in the API and you access it via the API server. So that's two things, the API and the API server. So let's tackle the API first, right? So all objects in Kubernetes, so pods, deployment, services, config maps, you name it, right? They all exist in the API. That means that the API has a definition for them. So take a pod, right? A pod has things like an image that it uses, a name, labels that you apply to it, containers, it knows about network ports. So all of that definition is stored in the API. So maybe think of the API as a little bit like a catalog, right? So you can only deploy a pod that fits the definition that's in the API. So as an example, you couldn't deploy a pod with a property like color because that's not in the API. It's not defined as part of the object definition. So the API server. The job of the API server is to serve the API. All right, sounds simple, but what does that even mean? Well, it means being the interface to the API. So we know that everything in Kubernetes is defined in the API, right? The API server exposes a RESTful interface over HTTP. Buzzwords, right? What does it mean? It means that if you want to post a new pod to the cluster, or you want to get information about the pod, or you want to delete it, then you use standard HTTP verbs or methods that are post to post a new object, get to get information about an object, and an HTTP delete to delete an object. So let's say you want to get a list of all of the pods that are in a particular namespace on the cluster. That's fine. It's just an HTTP get to a URI, something like this. Now, because it's just an HTTP server, right? Yeah, you can use any HTTP client to talk to a particular known URI endpoint, and you just throw gets and posts and deletes, and you get information, you post new objects, or you delete existing objects. But to be honest, normally we use kubectl, which does all of that HTTP madness in the background for us. So just to summarize, right? Yes, Kubernetes is API centric. There is an API where all of the objects are defined, and there's an API server that sits in front of the API. Now, listen, so I talk to the API server if I need to do anything on Kubernetes, so do automated jobs, and so do other cluster internal components. So literally all chatter and all talk within Kubernetes goes via the API server. So make sure it's highly available, yeah? So that's your Kubernetes moment for this week. I'm Nigel Poulton. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Come on! Kubernetes, yeah? Look, everybody's got the t-shirt. You go to KubeCon, you get one free. Or if you're like me, you go back for 2, sometimes 3. Anyway, who's got one of these? Oh, one of these. Oh, how's about this? Oh! Don't tell my wife though. Obviously it's a transfer, right? Everybody knows that. But it proper fooled my wife.